Call an ambulance! He's dying!" The scream echoed through aisle 7 of the Hy-Vee supermarket in Kansas City, like a gunshot. It was 4:20 p.m. on July 5, 2025, and what had started as an ordinary Saturday afternoon was about to become anything but ordinary. Jamison Crawford, 9 years old and completely bald from months of chemotherapy, collapsed violently onto the cold linoleum floor. His small body convulsed uncontrollably as blood began trickling from the corner of his mouth. The bright fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows on his pale, gaunt face, making him look even smaller and more fragile than his 70-pound frame already suggested. My son is dying!" Cordelia Crawford, known to everyone as Corey, dropped to her knees beside Jamie, her voice breaking with pure terror. Her work uniform from the office building she cleaned at night was wrinkled and stained, evidence of the 3 buses she had taken to get to this particular supermarket, because it was the only one in the city where her food stamps stretched far enough to buy Jamie's special dietary supplement. Shoppers scattered in panic, their carts abandoned as they backed away from the medical emergency unfolding before them. Some pulled out their phones to record the scene, others simply stared in morbid fascination. A few hurried past, unwilling to get involved in something so clearly tragic and complicated. "Get away from him!" Magnolia Henderson, the cashier from Register 3, pushed through the small crowd that had begun to form. Her voice was sharp with frustration and exhaustion. She had seen too many emergencies in her 15 years working at this store, too many families in crisis who couldn't afford the help they desperately needed. A man in a worn Kansas City Chiefs baseball cap and a simple gray hoodie tried to step closer, but Maggie blocked his path with surprising force for someone barely 5 feet tall. "I just want to help," the man said quietly, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Everyone wants to help," Maggie shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "Where were all of you people when this family needed money for his treatment? Where were you when his mother was working 3 jobs to pay for medicine? Where were you when they were begging for help?" Jamie's convulsions suddenly stopped. His small body went completely still on the floor. His eyes rolled back, showing only the white. The silence that followed was more terrifying than all the screaming that had come before. "He's not breathing," Corey whispered, her voice barely audible as she placed her ear close to her son's chest. Jamie, please don't leave me." Without hesitation, the man in the chief's cap pushed past Maggie and dropped to his knees beside Jamie. His hands moved with practiced precision as he tilted the boy's head back and checked his airway. "Who do you think you are?" Maggie demanded, but her voice had lost some of its earlier venom. She could see something in the man's movement, a confidence that suggested he knew exactly what he was doing. The man ignored her completely, placing his hands on Jamie's chest and beginning chest compression. "Come on, buddy," he murmured, his voice steady and encouraging despite the gravity of the situation. "Come on back to us. Your mom needs you." 30 seconds that felt like 30 hours passed in complete silence, except for the rhythmic sound of the man's hands pushing against Jamie's ribs. Even the background music in the store seemed to have stopped, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Then Jamie coughed, a wet, painful sound that was the most beautiful thing anyone in that aisle had ever heard. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused, but unmistakably alive. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice so small it was barely more than a breath. Corey collapsed forward, gathering her son into her arms as tears streamed down her face. "Jamie, oh, thank God, you're back. The man who had performed the CPR remained kneeling on the floor, breathing heavily from the adrenaline and exertion. His hands were shaking slightly, and there was something in his eyes that suggested this moment had affected him far more deeply than he was letting on. Jamie blinked several times, trying to focus his vision on the man who had just saved his life. There was something familiar about him, something that made Jamie's brain work harder, despite his weakness. "Who are you?" Jamie asked, his voice growing slightly stronger with each word. The man hesitated for a moment, then reached up and removed his baseball cap. Dark hair fell across his forehead, revealing a face that was unmistakably recognizable to anyone who followed professional football. "Just someone who couldn't let you give up," he said simply. Jamie's eyes widened as recognition dawned. Despite his illness, despite the medication that often made his thoughts fuzzy, despite everything he had been through, he knew exactly who was kneeling beside him on the floor of aisle 7. "Travis!" "Kelce!" he whispered, his voice filled with such disbelief that it was almost comical. The crowd that had gathered around them fell into complete silence. People who had been recording with their phones slowly lowered them, suddenly understanding that they were witnessing something far more significant than a medical emergency. This was a moment that would change lives. "Hey there, buddy," Travis said, his voice warm and gentle. "It's really good to have you back with us." In the distance, the wail of an ambulance siren was growing louder, cutting through the afternoon air of Kansas City. Travis knew that when the paramedics arrived, everything would change. He would become Travis Kelce the celebrity, and this moment of pure human connection would be lost in a whirlwind of procedures and protocol, and people who wanted something from him. But right now, in this moment, he was just a man who had happened to be in the right place at the right time to save a child's life. And that child needed more than CPR to survive what was coming next. Travis looked into Jamie's eyes and saw something that broke his heart and filled it with determination at the same time. He saw a fighter who was running out of fight, a warrior who was losing a battle that no 9-year-old should ever have to face. "Jamie," he said softly, "I have a feeling we're going to be great friends." "Oh my God, Travis Kelce!" The recognition rippled through the small crowd like wildfire. People who had been backing away suddenly pressed closer, phones appearing from every direction as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Travis Kelce, one of the most famous athletes in Kansas City, was kneeling on the floor of a discount supermarket, holding a dying child. Corey Crawford looked up at Travis, her eyes red with tears and filled with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "This is real? You're really—" "I'm just a guy who was buying groceries and found a friend who needed help," Travis said, his voice deliberately calm and steady. He could see the panic starting to build in Corey's eyes, the way people sometimes reacted when they realized they were in the presence of someone famous. He needed her to stay focused on what was important. Jamie was conscious but growing weaker by the minute. His breathing was shallow and labored, and Travis could see the exhaustion in every line of the boy's face. This wasn't just a simple fainting spell or a reaction to medication. This was something serious, something that required immediate medical attention. I need to call an ambulance," Corey said, fumbling through her purse with shaking hands. "But the cost? It's $800 just for the ride, and I don't have—" "How much?" Travis asked, though he had heard her clearly the first time. $800. I used the last of my savings last week to pay for Jamie's medication. We took 3 buses to get here because this is the only store where our food stamps buy enough to last the whole month." Travis looked at Jamie, who was trying to stay awake but clearly struggling. The boy's lips had a bluish tint that Travis recognized from his own experience with medical emergencies. This child needed to get to a hospital, and he needed to get there now. "Corey, right?" Travis said, gently lifting Jamie into his arm. The boy weighed almost nothing, feeling more like a feather than a 9-year-old child. "My car is right outside. Let's go." "But I can't accept." Corey started to protest, but Travis was already walking toward the exit. "Corey, listen to me," he said, his voice firm but kind. "Right now, I'm not Travis Kelce. I'm just your neighbor who's giving you and your son a ride to the hospital. That's all." Maggie Henderson watched them go, her earlier anger replaced by something that looked like awe. She had been working at this store for 15 years, and she had seen plenty of celebrities come through these doors. Most of them were in and out as quickly as possible, avoiding eye contact and treating the staff like they were invisible. She had never seen anything like this. Travis's car turned out to be a simple Ford Explorer, probably 8 years old and showing signs of regular use. It wasn't the flashy sports car that most people would have expected a millionaire athlete to drive, but it was practical and comfortable, with a back seat that could easily accommodate a sick child. "Which hospital?" Travis asked as he carefully placed Jamie in the back seat and helped Corey buckle him in. "Children's Mercy," Corey replied, "but it's on the other side of the city, and the traffic this time of day—" "Don't worry about the traffic," Travis said, starting the engine. "Jamie, do you like music?" The boy nodded weakly, and Travis turned on the radio, keeping the volume low. A classic rock song was playing, something soft and comforting that filled the silence without being overwhelming. "You know what, buddy? Let's sing along," Travis suggested. Singing helps keep your breathing steady. As they drove through the streets of Kansas City, Travis found himself stealing glances in the rearview mirror at Jamie and Corey. The boy was resting against his mother's shoulder, his eyes closed but his breathing more regular than it had been in the store. Corey was stroking his head gently, whispering words of comfort that only he could hear. "Travis," Corey said suddenly, "why are you doing? You don't know us. We're nobody special." Travis was quiet for a moment, navigating through afternoon traffic, while considering his answer. "You know, Corey, I think that's where you're wrong. Jamie is probably the most special person I've met in a long time." "What do you mean?" "In the store, when he was unconscious, I could see something in his face. Even when he was fighting for his life, there was this strength, this determination. I've played football with some of the toughest guys in the world, but I've never seen anything like what I saw in your son's face." Jamie stirred slightly in the back seat, opening his eyes and looking at Travis in the rearview mirror. "Do you really think I'm strong?" "I think you're the strongest person I know, buddy. How long have you been fighting this thing?" 8 months, Jamie said quietly. "Since right before my 9th birthday. The doctors said I probably wouldn't see Christmas, but I'm still here. And you're going to be here for a lot more Christmas," Travis said with conviction. "I can feel it." Children's Mercy Hospital came into view, its distinctive architecture a welcome sight after the tense drive across the city. Travis pulled up to the emergency entrance and was immediately approached by a security guard who started to tell him he couldn't park there. "This is a medical emergency," Travis said simply, getting out of the car and opening the back door. "This child needs immediate attention." The security guard looked confused for a moment, clearly recognizing Travis but unsure how to process the situation. It wasn't every day that a famous athlete showed up at the emergency room carrying a sick child. Travis lifted Jamie out of the car as gently as possible. The boy had grown even weaker during the drive, and his breathing was becoming more labored. Time was running out, and Travis could feel the urgency building in his chest. "Let's get you taken care of, buddy," he whispered to Jamie as they walked through the automatic doors of the emergency room. "Everything's going to be okay." But as they entered the hospital and Travis saw the concerned faces of the medical staff, he began to realize that everything might not be okay at all. In fact, things might be much worse than any of them had imagined. The emergency room at Children's Mercy Hospital was a controlled chaos of medical professionals, beeping machines, and worried families. The moment Travis walked through the doors carrying Jamie, the entire atmosphere shifted. Nurses and doctors who had been focused on their individual tasks suddenly stopped and stared, processing the surreal sight of one of Kansas City's most famous athletes cradling a desperately ill child. Dr. Thaddeus Whitmore, the chief pediatric oncologist, appeared almost immediately. He was a tall, serious man in his 60s, with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering over his 30-year career. He took one look at Jamie and knew exactly what he was dealing with. "What happened?" Dr. Whitmore asked, his professional demeanor taking over as he guided Travis toward an examination room. "He collapsed in the supermarket," Travis explained, gently placing Jamie on the examination table. "Convulsion. Stopped breathing for about 30 seconds. I performed CPR and he came back, but he's been getting weaker ever since." Dr. Whitmore glanced at Travis with a mixture of confusion and respect. It wasn't every day that a celebrity knew how to perform life-saving medical procedure, but there was clearly more to this story than met the eye. "Are you family?" the doctor asked, beginning his examination of Jamie while nurses attached monitoring equipment. "He's a friend," Travis said simply, stepping back to give the medical team room to work. Corey stood in the corner of the room, wringing her hands and watching every movement the doctors and nurses made. She had been through this routine dozens of times over the past 8 months, but it never got easy. If anything, it got harder each time, because she could see the way the medical staff looked at her son with increasing concern and decreasing hope. After an hour of tests, scans, and consultation, Dr. Whitmore asked Corey to step into the hallway for a private conversation. Travis remained in the room with Jamie, who was now connected to several machines and receiving oxygen through a nasal cannula. "How are you feeling, buddy?" Travis asked, pulling a chair close to the bed. "Tired," Jamie admitted. "Really, really tired. Sometimes I think it would be easier to just stop fighting." Travis felt his heart clench at the boy's words. "Jamie, can I tell you something? When I'm playing football and I'm exhausted, when every muscle in my body is screaming at me to quit, you know what keeps me going?" Jamie shook his head weakly. I think about all the people who are counting on me. My teammates, my coaches, the fans in the stand. But most of all, I think about kids like you who watch the games and see that sometimes, when everything seems impossible, you can still find a way to win. But what if I can't win this one? Jamie whispered. Then you fight anyway. Because fighting isn't about winning, Jamie. Fighting is about showing the world what courage looks like. In the hallway, Dr. Whitmore was having the conversation that no parent should ever have to hear. He had pulled Corey into a small consultation, away from the noise and activity of the emergency department. Corey, he began gently, the scans show that the tumor has grown significantly since Jamie's last visit, much faster than we anticipated. What does that mean? Corey asked, though she could see the answer in the doctor's eyes. It means we're looking at a matter of hours, not days. I'm so sorry. The words hit Corey like a physical blow. She had known this day was coming, had been preparing for it for months, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of hearing those words spoken out loud. Hours, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The tumor is pressing against critical areas of his brain. The seizure he had at the store was a warning sign. The next one, Dr. Whitmore didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Travis, who had been standing just outside the door, heard every word. Without thinking, he stepped into the consultation room. Doctor, can I speak with you for a moment? Dr. Whitmore looked surprised. Who are you exactly? Someone who cares about that little boy in there. Is there anything at all that could help him? The doctor studied Travis's face, seeing something there that he hadn't expected. This wasn't the casual interest of a celebrity looking for a photo opportunity. This was genuine desperation from someone who had just discovered that a child he cared about was dying. There is one possibility, Dr. Whitmore said slowly. There's an experimental treatment at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. It's shown promising results in cases similar to Jamie. But what? It costs $150,000, and there's a waiting list months long. Even if we could get him accepted into the program, we'd need to transport him there immediately, and the chances of success are still only about 30%. Travis pulled out his phone without hesitation. What do I need to do to get him a spot today? Dr. Whitmore stared at him, shocked. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Jamie is going to Memphis today, whatever it takes. Even if I could make the calls, even if we could arrange the transport, the cost. The cost isn't a problem, Travis said firmly. The only question is whether you can get him accepted into the program. Dr. Whitmore looked back and forth between Travis and Corey, trying to process what was happening. In his 30 years of practicing medicine, he had never encountered anything like this. You're talking about spending more money than most people make in 5 years on a child you met an hour ago, he said slowly. Doctor, 3 years ago, my nephew died of leukemia. I had the money to pay for experimental treatment, but I didn't know they existed until it was too late. I'm not going to let that happen again. Corey began crying again, but these were different tears than before. These were tears of hope mixed with disbelief. Tears of a mother who had just been offered a miracle when she had been preparing to say goodbye to her child forever. Travis, I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Travis replied. Let's see if we can actually make this happen. Dr. Whitmore was already reaching for his phone. I'll call St. Jude right now. If you're serious about this, we don't have any time to waste. I've never been more serious about anything in my life, Travis said. The next 2 hours moved with the speed and intensity of a playoff game in the final quarter. Dr. Whitmore made call after call, speaking with colleagues at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, explaining Jamie's case and the unique circumstances that had brought them this opportunity. Travis had stepped outside to make his own series of phone calls, arranging for a private medical transport plane that could get Jamie to Memphis safely and quickly. Money, which had never been more than numbers in his bank account, was now becoming the tool that might save a child's life. Beauregard Crawford, Jamie's father, arrived at the hospital running and out of breath. He worked construction when he could find jobs, but work had been scarce lately, and he had been spending most of his time taking care of Jamie when Corey was at her cleaning job. What's happening? Beau demanded. He burst into Jamie's. Corey called me and said Jamie collapsed, and then she said something about Travis Kelce. I don't understand what's going on. Jamie, who had been drifting in and out of consciousness, opened his eyes when he heard his father's voice. Daddy, he whispered, Travis Kelce is going to help me get better. Bo looked around the room, taking in the machine, the medical equipment, and the man in the chief's hoodie was standing quiet in the corner. It took him a moment to process what he was seeing. "You're really him," Bo said, not as a question, but as a statement of disbelief. "I'm really just someone who wants to help your son," Travis replied. "But why? I mean, we're nobody. We don't have money. We don't have connections. We don't have anything to offer you." Travis walked over to Jamie's bedside and looked down at the boy, who was listening to every word despite his weakening condition. "You know what you have to offer me, Bo? You have a son who has been fighting cancer for 8 months and has never once complained about being in pain. You have a kid who collapsed in a supermarket, and the first thing he did when he woke up was ask if his mom was okay. You have a little boy who just told me that even though he's tired of fighting, he's going to keep fighting anyway, because that's what brave people do." Bo felt tears starting to form in his eyes. "That's just Jamie being Jamie. He's always been like that." "That's exactly my point," Travis said. "Jamie is extraordinary, and extraordinary people deserve extraordinary chances." Dr. Whitmore returned to the room with news that would change everything. "I've spoken with Dr. Sarah Chen at St. Jude. They're willing to accept Jamie into the experimental program immediately. The transport plane can be here in 90 minutes. Corey grabbed Travis's arm. "This is really happening? We're really going to Memphis?" "We're really going to Memphis," Travis confirmed. "But the cost is taken care of, completely. All you need to focus on is being with Jamie and supporting him through this treatment." Evangeline Thompson, the elderly neighbor who had practically raised Jamie alongside his parents, arrived at the hospital carrying a small bag of clothes and Jamie's favorite stuffed animal, a worn teddy bear named Captain America. "I brought some things for the trip," Ava said, her voice shaking with emotion. "And I want you to know that the whole neighborhood is praying for you, Jamie." Mrs. Rodriguez lit candles at the church, and Mr. Patterson organized a prayer circle in the community center. Jamie smiled weakly at Ava. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Will you take care of my goldfish while I'm gone?" "Of course, sweetheart. Nemo will be waiting for you when you come home." The medical transport team arrived exactly on schedule, led by a flight nurse named Serafina Rodriguez, who specialized in pediatric critical care. She took one look at Jamie and immediately began coordinating with Dr. Whitmore about the safest way to transport him. "The flight to Memphis is about 2 hours," Sarah explained to the family. "Jamie will be stable and comfortable the entire time. I'll be monitoring him constantly, and we have all the equipment we need if there are any complications." Travis watched as the medical team prepared Jamie for transport, feeling a mixture of hope and terror that he had never experienced before. He had played in Super Bowl, faced championship pressure in front of millions of people, but nothing had ever felt as important as this moment. "Travis," Jamie called weakly from the stretcher, "can you come with us? I wouldn't miss it for the world." As they prepared to leave the hospital, Cornelius Washington, the security guard who had initially been confused by Travis's presence, approached with something in his hand. "Mr. Kelce," Neil said quietly, "I know this might not be the right time, but I wanted to give you this." He handed Travis a small piece of paper. "It's my grandson's phone number. He's been fighting leukemia for 6 months, and he's your biggest fan. I know you probably get requests like this all the time, but..." Travis took the paper without hesitation. "What's his name?" "Marcus. He's 7 years old. Tell Marcus that as soon as we get back from Memphis, I'm going to call him, and tell him that I know a little boy named Jamie who's going to want to talk to him about being brave." Neil smiled, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, sir. That's going to mean everything to him." The journey to the medical transport plane was surreal. Travis found himself in the ambulance with Jamie and Corey, watching the city of Kansas City pass by through the window. Jamie was stable, but growing weaker, and Travis could see the fear in Corey's eyes despite her attempts to stay strong for her son. "Mom," Jamie said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. "If this doesn't work..." "Don't talk like that," Corey interrupted. "But if it doesn't work, I want you to know that I'm not scared anymore. Travis taught me that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what you have to do even when you are scared." Travis felt something break inside his chest. This 9-year-old boy, facing the possibility of death, was comforting his mother and sharing wisdom that most adults never learn. "Jamie," Travis said, "I need you to make me a promise." "What kind of promise?" "Promise me that you're going to fight this thing with everything you have. Promise me that you're not going to give up, no matter how hard it gets. I promise, Jamie whispered, but only if you promise me something too. Anything. Promise me that if I don't make it, you'll help other kids like me. Promise me that this won't be the only time you save someone. Travis had to turn away to hide his tears. I promise, buddy, but you're going to make it. I know you are. The Hy-Vee supermarket, on a cold January morning, looked exactly the same as it had 6 months earlier, but everything else had changed. Travis Kelce walked through the automatic doors, pulling his shopping cart and heading toward the same aisle, 7, where his life had been forever altered. He was picking up ingredients for a chili recipe he planned to make for the playoff game watch party at his house when he heard a familiar voice calling his name. But this time, the voice was strong and clear and filled with pure joy. Travis! He turned around and saw a sight that made his heart soar. Jamison Crawford was running toward him at full speed, his dark hair flowing behind him, his cheeks pink with health and excitement. He looked like any other 10-year-old boy hurrying to greet a friend, except for the small scar on his forehead that served as a reminder of how close they had come to losing him. Jamie! Travis dropped his shopping basket and caught the boy in a bear hug, lifting him off the ground and spinning him around. Look at you! How are you feeling, buddy? 100% cured, Jamie announced proudly. Dr. Chen said the tumor is completely gone, and all my tests are perfect. She said it was like a miracle. Corey Crawford appeared behind her son, tears streaming down her face as she watched the reunion. She looked different too, healthier, less stressed, with a genuine smile that reached her eyes for the first time in years. Travis, she said, her voice thick with emotion, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to even begin to thank you for giving us our son back. You don't need to thank me, Travis replied, setting Jamie back on his feet, but keeping his hands on the boy's shoulder. Seeing him like this is all the thanks I need. Magnolia Henderson, the cashier who had been working that day 6 months ago, approached them with tears in her eyes. She had followed Jamie's story through the local news and social media, watching from afar as the experimental treatment in Memphis slowly but surely brought him back to health. Mr. Kelce, Maggie said quietly, I owe you an apology. That day when Jamie collapsed, I was so angry at the world, so tired of seeing families suffer without anyone helping them. I had no right to speak to you the way I did. Maggie, you don't owe me anything, Travis said warmly. You were protecting a family you cared about. That took courage. But you proved me wrong. You showed up when it mattered most. Travis shook his head. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Anyone would have done the same thing. Jamie tugged on Travis's jacket. That's not true. And you know it. Not everyone would have paid for the treatment. Not everyone would have flown to Memphis with a kid they barely knew. Not everyone would have stayed with me in the hospital when I was scared. You stayed with him? Corey asked, surprised. You never told me that. For 3 days, Jamie said proudly. When Mom and Dad had to come back to Kansas City to work, Travis stayed with me. He read me stories and played video games and helped me be brave when the treatments made me feel really sick. Travis felt his cheeks reddening slightly. It wasn't a big deal. I just wanted to make sure you weren't alone. It was a big deal to me, Jamie said seriously. And Travis, I kept my promise too. What promise? I fought with everything I had, just like you asked me to. Even when I wanted to give up, I remembered what you said about being brave. A small crowd had begun to gather, shoppers who recognized Travis and remembered the story that had made national news. The footage from that day had gone viral, not because of the celebrity involvement, but because of the pure humanity of the moment. A stranger refusing to let a child die, regardless of the cost. Bartholomew Sullivan, the pharmacy manager, joined the group. Mr. Kelce, I don't know if you remember me, but I wanted to tell you that what you did changed everything for families like the Crawford. The hospital set up a fund based on your example, and we've been able to help 12 other children get treatments they couldn't afford. That's incredible, Travis said, genuinely moved. See, Jamie? Your story is helping other kids, too. Can I tell you a secret? Jamie asked, pulling Travis down to his level. Of course. In the hospital, when I was really sick, I had dreams about coming back here to see you. When I was scared about the treatments working, I would imagine us meeting again in aisle 7 and me being healthy and strong. When I woke up today and Mom said we were coming shopping, I knew you'd be. I could feel it. Travis felt his eyes filling with tears. You know what, Jamie? I dreamed about this too. I dreamed about seeing you running and laughing and being a normal kid again, but I'm not just a normal kid anymore, Jamie said thoughtfully. I'm a kid who survived cancer. And you know what that means? What does it mean? It means I have a responsibility to help other kids who are going through what I went through. Dr. Chen said, I can be a peer counselor when I'm older, someone who talks to new cancer patients and helps them understand that they can beat it too. Corey placed her hand on her son's shoulder. Jamie has been volunteering at the hospital already, reading stories to younger children who are starting treatment. He tells them about Travis and about how sometimes miracles come from the most unexpected places. That's amazing, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Percy Martinez, Jamie's best friend from school, came running down the aisle with his mother close behind. Jamie, you didn't tell me you were meeting Travis Kelce today. I didn't know, Jamie laughed. But somehow I knew he'd be here. Travis looked around at all the faces surrounding them in aisle 7. Corey and Bo Crawford, Maggie Henderson, Bartholomew Sullivan, Percy and his mother, and shoppers who had stopped to witness this unexpected reunion. 6 months ago, this had been the site of a medical emergency that could have ended in tragedy. Today, it was the site of a celebration of life and hope, the power of humankind. You know what, Jamie? Travis said, kneeling down to the boy's eye level. I want to make you another promise. What kind of promise? I promise that every time I'm in Kansas City, I'm going to stop by this store and visit aisle 7. This is our special place now. The place where we first met, and the place where miracles happen. Promise. I promise. And I promise that I'm going to keep helping kids like you, because you taught me something important. What did I teach you? You taught me that the biggest victories in life don't happen on football fields. They happen in hospitals and supermarkets and anywhere that people choose to care about each other when nobody else is watching. Jamie threw his arms around Travis's neck and hugged him tightly. Travis, can I tell you the biggest secret of all? What's that, buddy? That day when I collapsed and you saved me, I wasn't just dying from cancer. I was dying from being sad and scared and feeling like nobody cared about me except my parents. But when you stayed with me and helped me and showed me that I mattered to someone, you didn't just save my body. You saved my heart, too. Travis had to close his eyes and take a deep breath to keep from breaking down completely. This child, who had faced death and fought his way back to life, was teaching him lessons about courage and hope that he would carry for the rest of his life. Jamie, you saved my heart too. You reminded me why I have this platform, why I have this opportunity to make a difference. It's not about fame or money or touchdowns. It's about moments like this. Corey stepped forward and put her hand on Travis's arm. Travis, there's something else we want to tell you. The story of what you did for Jamie has inspired so many people. We've received letters from families all over the country telling us about their own children who are fighting cancer and how Jamie's story has given them hope. That's right, Bo added, appearing with a shopping cart full of groceries, and some of those families have received help from other people who heard about what you did. It's like you started a chain reaction of kindness. Evangeline Thompson, the elderly neighbor who had become like a grandmother to Jamie, approached the group with a warm smile. Travis, I wanted you to know that our whole neighborhood considers you family now. You didn't just save one little boy. You saved our entire community's faith in human goodness. Mrs. Thompson is right, said Cornelius Washington, the hospital security guard who had given Travis his grandson's phone number. Remember Marcus, my grandson who was fighting leukemia? Well, he's in remission now too, and he says it's because you gave him a hero to look up to, someone who showed him that people really do care about kids like him. Travis felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and gratitude from this group of people who had become so important to him. You know what? All of you taught me something that I never learned in all my years playing professional football. What's that, Jamie? I learned that being a real champion isn't about winning games or breaking records. It's about using whatever gifts you have to lift up other people, especially when they need it most. Dr. Thaddeus Whitmore appeared at the end of the aisle, having stopped by the store on his way home from the hospital. When he saw the gathering, he approached with a broad smile. Well, if it isn't my favorite patient and the man who made medical history, Dr. Whitmore said warmly. Dr. Whitmore! Jamie exclaimed. What are you doing here? I was hoping I might run into you. I have some news that I think you'll want to hear. Good news? Corey asked anxiously. The best news. The experimental treatment that saved Jamie has been so successful that St. Jude is expanding the program. They're going to be able to help 50 more children this year, and it's all because of the attention that Jamie's case brought to the research. Travis felt a warmth spreading through his chest that was better than any touchdown celebration he had ever experienced. So, Jamie really is helping other kids, just like he wanted to, more than he knows, Dr. Whitmore confirmed. Jamie, you've become something of a legend at Children's Mercy. We tell your story to families who are just beginning their cancer journey, and it gives them hope that miracles really do happen. Jamie looked up at Travis with shining eyes. See? I told you that day in the hospital that I wanted to help other kids someday. I just didn't know it would happen so fast. That's because you're extraordinary, Jamie. You always have been. As the group began to disperse, with people heading back to their shopping and their normal Saturday routine, Travis found himself alone with Jamie's parents for a few final moments. Travis, Corey said quietly, I know we've said this before, but I need to say it again. You didn't just save our son's life. You saved our entire family. We were drowning in medical bills and despair, and you threw us a lifeline when we needed it most. And more than that, Bo added, you showed us that there are still good people in the world who will help a stranger just because it's the right thing to do. Travis looked down at Jamie, who was standing between his parents, with a smile that could light up the entire store. You know what I realized today? That day 6 months ago, when I found Jamie on the floor of this aisle, I thought I was saving, but really, he was saving me. How did I save you? Jamie, confused. You reminded me what's really important in life. You showed me that all the football games and all the fame in the world don't matter if you're not using your blessing to help other people. You changed my heart, Jamie. Does that mean we're even now? Jamie asked with a grin. I don't think we'll ever be even, buddy. I think I'm going to owe you for the rest of my life. Well then, Jamie said thoughtfully, I guess that means we're going to be friends forever. Forever, Travis agreed, reaching out to shake Jamie's hand. And every time I come back to aisle 7, I'm going to remember the day I met the bravest kid in Kansas City. And every time I come here, Jamie replied, I'm going to remember the day I learned that miracles are real, and sometimes they wear Chiefs jerseys, shop for groceries, just like regular people. As Travis finally headed toward the checkout line with his own groceries, he could hear Jamie talking excitedly to his parents about their next visit to the hospital, where he was scheduled to read stories to children who were just beginning their own cancer journey. He smiled to himself, knowing that the little boy who had collapsed in this very aisle 6 months ago was now spending his healthy days helping other children find the courage to fight their own battle. Travis Kelce had come to the Hy-Vee supermarket that January morning to buy ingredients for chili. Instead, he had been reminded of the most important lesson he had ever learned, that the greatest victories in life happen not when the whole world is watching, but when nobody is watching at all, except the people who matter most. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, those moments change everything.